It was really the first time I just kind of cried out like, I need you, God. And I stopped cold turkey. It was by the grace of God, like I just stopped. And that was really the first time I was like, whoa, there's something to this. And, I kind of dabbled throughout my journey until I had my second daughter she was born with a heart condition. And we had to go to cardiologist every week from the time she was born. And she'd have to be calm to get the readings. And one time she was just screaming, just nonstop. And we were doing everything and anything. And they said, if we don't get her to calm down, we're going to have to admit her to the hospital. And I'll never forget, she was lying on my stomach, screaming for hours. And I said, God, help us. And in a second, her body went limp. She stopped crying. She was calm. She was peaceful. And they got all the readings. It was the most powerful moment of my life.
Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Kelly Coughlin on the podcast that you guys are going to be hearing her story. It's an amazing one, spiritual journey. And then she's also a speaker and she's helping so many people do amazing things around holistic health, as well as just helping a lot of students really become in their identity of everything. So you guys are going to hear her story and how she helps serve people. Before we jump into the podcast here, I want to give everybody a gift. Everybody down in the show notes, there is a link to a full training of how to grow your brand. So many leaders I speak with struggle with knowing how to really grow and expand. And they're thinking, ads are out of their perspective, or even if I do get someone booked, how do I do the sales and have a conversation, to do that with, integrity and empathy. I have a full training down below, how to be able to look at that, building that brand. So check that down below. My gift to everybody listening here. Kelly, super pumped that you're here. You're a guest here on the podcast. Let's dive in with just a question I ask everybody, which is, what is high performance? What does that look like to you? How do you define that?
For me, I really feel like that high performance is pushing through the uncertainty, pushing through on the days that you don't feel like doing the do. That high performance is not only rising up to your levels of your goals, but really always taking a deep dive each and every day of what your systems are, what your numbers are. It's not only your mindset, but it's also who you get to be in your actions as well. So life's, and there's going to be days, I'm a mom of three that, I'm pulled in three different directions and all the things. And those are the days where I just feel like unplugging. High performance, though, is keeping my eye on the target and saying to myself, okay, this is my goal. Who do I get to be right now to achieve that goal? Okay, I get to be confident. I get to be powerful. I get to step into my faith even more. I get to be joyful, even on the days that I won't, because if I'm going to achieve something, I don't wait for that to happen right away. I wait for that to happen. I become that person now, so I get to attract that in. Yeah. So that's just a snippet of how I live my day to day as a mom of three, too.
Yeah. I love it. And how do you serve people? Help the hearers here understand a little bit more how you care, serve people, what you do, all that.
For me, it's, like I said, a daily action. So it could be the person at, Starbucks. It's pouring into them acts of kindness. It could be, holding the door for a stranger. I serve in that way every day. And on the bigger spectrum, I serve in letting people know that they're seen. Even leaders. I reached out to a huge leader the other day and just asking how they're doing. And there's many times with these big leaders as yourself, right? Like you're serving so many people that sometimes you want to be taken care of and you want to be seen. So I really take the time to make sure everyone is seen. Everyone feels loved and heard. And when it comes to me speaking, my mission and purpose is for everyone to tap into their worthiness, know that they're here for a reason, that they were born with their special gift inside of them. It's like their fingerprint. There's not one and the same in the world. It's the same thing with the gifts that we have inside of them. So on the larger scale, it's really peeling away the layers of each and every person for them to expose that their light, expose their gift, and remind them they're worthy of that.
Where did this all begin? Like, how did you know that this was kind of your focus and your perspective? Like, Tell us about the very beginning of the origin story of Kelly when you're trying to figure out all this stuff and what you're doing and how to be, you got into speaking and how you're helping support people. Like, bring us back there to that story.
Yeah. So I've been a professional dancer, choreographer, performer my whole life. That was my identity. From main stages in Manhattan to music videos, all the things, my own dance company. And I lived in this world of feeling like I needed to be perfect at everything. And from the outside, it for sure looked like I had a perfect life. I had great parents, supportive friends. I just had that TikTok perfect, highlight reel of, wow, she's happy. And the strive of always needing to be perfect and look perfect really took a toll on me. And so even though I looked perfect, I was living my own nightmare inside. So I
Mm,
struggled with eating disorders, self-harm, negative self-talk for years. And as I grew up, I eventually got married. I had two daughters who are now 23 and 20, and kind of checked off all the boxes, go to school, check, meet the man, check, buy the house, all the things, and have a nice job, did all the things. And I always felt like there was just something missing. And throughout my journey, I taught many students in dance. I love my students. They're absolutely amazing. They're my muse.
mm,
But I found myself speaking to them more about life lessons than dancing. And I had so much joy around that. And then my surprise, at 40, I had my third baby, which was the best, most beautiful surprise that I could ever imagine. Though, full transparency, I did not want the pregnancy. I was 40. I was kind of just happy the way things were, but God had a bigger plan.
mm,
And after I had her, I went into depression. I went into postpartum. My whole body was inflamed. I could barely diaper her diapers. And I started to take a step back and realize I was becoming this mother to my other two that I didn't even recognize.
mm,
Bitter, resentful, irritable. And so that led me to a holistic journey of really like starting to take a deep dive what was going on inside my body, inside my brain, inside my gut. And that led me on a holistic journey, removing toxins out of my life and just really getting my body centered. And in that process, found self-development. And at my age, growing up, self-development was Oprah Winfrey. Like that's what we did. We watched Oprah.
yeah.
um, so jumping into that 10 years ago, it was foreign territory for me. But I soon realized that I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of things that I needed to heal from. And through that journey became my personal development story, became my healing, and brought me closer to my best friend, Jesus,
Mm,
which led me into a beautiful relationship with God. I am standing here in front of you because of him. I've seen his hand not only on my life, but on my children's lives. And through that process, I was able to really discover why I was born. My reason, his purpose in me
mm,
is to impact the youth, to remind them of who they are, of their worthiness, that they're seen and they're loved. They don't need to wait until they're 40 years old to discover it. They're able to have these tangible tools that they can start uncovering themselves now, especially the way the world is today. So, from my own experiences as obviously a young girl to a mother of three girls who have dealt with some really deep, dark times of their own, I was able to take all those experiences, all that trauma, all that darkness, and not allow it to bury me, but to plant me in my purpose and cultivate.
mm. That that's so awesome. Like, so many times people want transformation in their life and they think and expect that it just is going to come, hopefully, not as late at 4 years old. But sometimes God puts those challenges in our life to kind of perfect and hone in who we're meant to be. And I really love that story because it's like
Thank you.
you had that perspective of like, hey, things are okay. But when things are okay, it's not always the alignment that we're meant to be, right? And
Absolutely.
kids are a blessing, but they're not easy at all, right? And
Especially girls.
okay, yeah, I have a 2 year old, and I can only imagine as she grows that that's going to become more of a interesting puzzle for sure. But
Hmm.
with everything you're talking about, like talk about like the holistic part too, because I want to get the insights of like what you had to do to really go about that, because I know so many times there's this spiritual awareness and awakening that God calls us for, and I want to touch on that, but it's also getting really clear and aligned about your health and prioritizing that. Like even the Bible talks about that. If we're going to go in that direction, it's like we have our body as a temple. Like how are we honoring that and doing that? And now in our culture, like the food, the intake of everything is just really toxic. It's not really good at all. And it affects us so many ways. And we don't even think about it. Like our emotions, our mind, our body, it just gets us in a really strong funk, and it's hard to even get through it and even be capable of used as a tool like God's wanting us to be when we're just a dull, dull knife or something on the
Hmm.
sideline, right? So talk about that journey a little bit of like how many years, what was that perspective looking like, and how would you kind of suggest people to get through that?
Yeah, so for me being a dancer, it was so my eating disorder was I was on about 5 boxes of laxatives a day and about maybe 500 calories a day. So
Mm,
when I was literally destroying myself from the inside out, and there was so much fear around food. And so for me, it at first was healing my relationship with food. That food was not
mm,
bad. Food was not, going to, prevent me from getting a job. And so at first, I love how you first spoke about how people just kind of say, okay, well, I want to just quote unquote going on a diet, right? So I'm going to cut out sugars, but then they binge watch TV, or, they remove the binge watching TV, yet they'll, stuff their mouth with donuts, and no judgment
right.
whatsoever. But my point is, it's whole body wellness. It's mind, body, spirit, right? So like you said, the body's a temple. So for me, it was first taking a look at my relationship with food
Mm,
and understanding and realizing that, food is to nourish me. So it wasn't about not eating. It was eating the right foods that were going to give me the sustained energy, heal my gut. So I started on this, I would say, program that really got my body alkaline. I looked at, all the vitamins and the nutrients that I was lacking. Because like you said, our soils are completely depleted from, the pesticides, even organic foods. We really have to
mm,
take a look at that. And unfortunately, here in this country, doctors are only trained 24 hours in nutrition. Most of it, they're trained in prescription drugs. And so really just taking a hard look at nutrition, the nutritional value of like an apple today is, you have to eat like 15 apples today to get the same nutritional value from the 50s. It's
mm,
mind boggling. So it was removing anything processed out of my body, anything that was man-made, anything that was obviously, made in a lab, from food to the products I use to, I would even say like aspirin, all those things.
mm,
It was just taking a really hard look and cleansing my body more at a cellular level, most of all. Again, even people that would, cleanse, they're like organ specific, but we need to cleanse our body cellular. And when we do that, we oxygenate our body, we rejuvenate our body. It's almost like tuning up your car. So that was really my first step in really understanding and doing a lot of research and a lot of reading, looking at the science behind it, healing my gut. And, I was in and out of the hospital because of the damage I did,
oh gosh.
just with stomach pains. My stomach would, bloat till like I was 6 months pregnant, but it was just so inflamed.
Mm,
And the doctors were just like, this is how you have to live. Take this pill, take that pill. And I didn't like that answer. And so that's why I really just delved into the research and the science behind how can I live the most holistic life? What am I putting on my skin? What am I putting on my hair? And by doing that, I started to love food. I started to love who I was. I started to see the world in a different way. I started to get more centered in myself, which then settled me to meditate more, to be connected to my God, my source. And it just became this beautiful ripple effect. It said, okay, so if I'm concentrating on what I'm putting internally in my gut. Let me concentrate now on what I'm putting in my mind, right? So it was reading the books, it was listening to the positive podcast, putting on K-Love, the Christian music, not watching as much junk TV.
Yeah.
I went from, coming home from work and putting on the TV to, you know, playing Uno with my kids instead, being interactive, getting out the arts and crafts, putting on music and just dancing in my house. And so all those little pieces, 1% every day, because I'm a firm believer, if we look at that mountain, there's no way we can jump from here to here. We get
Yeah.
overwhelmed and we don't do anything. So I say to myself, what can I do 1% today that's going to move me closer to who I get to be, who I can impact? And from there, it just really, like I said, it became this beautiful ripple effect. And then about 3 years ago, my next big step was I removed alcohol from my life. So I'm 3 years
Ooh.
sober, which has been a beautiful journey in itself.
Yeah.
Uh, though I will say, when I did that, everybody thought there was something wrong with me. Like, what do you mean you're not drinking anymore? And I was like, it's not serving me. It's not
Yeah.
serving me. I have a bigger purpose. So that was a beautiful step that I
Yeah.
chose.
I love that. I love that. And I think so many times, like, we don't realize that just the intake of food is like, oh, we could see that it's bad, but we don't really resonate with the inputs of the music, how that affects us, the TV shows, the other mental things that go between our ears and our eyes that come through, that just is really kind of settles down to our heart. And then we realize it just comes out at us and it's affecting us wrong. And I'll
Hmm.
give this example. Uh, I remember like being around where people would say the F words all the time. Like I was in retail when I was in, high school, college, everybody, just every other word, right? I don't care if people cuss by any means, but what I realized is because I was around it so much, I went and stubbed my toe real bad. And the first word that came out was that. And I'm
Hmm.
like, where did that come from? Right. And it was just because I was around it. I was absorbed around it. So it's like, we don't even think about like the subtle differences that come in between our ears and our eyes and how much it affects us too. And so I love that. It's like not only be like detox from, food itself and really healing inside, but also being aware of what goes in between the mind too. And that also settles in who you are. So it affects like the emotions that you have. Like if you don't, drink enough water, you're going to feel awful, right? So it's like the intakes of stuff and you realize, hey man, why am I so exhausted? Well, I haven't drank that much water or I haven't ate anything at all. And it's like really kind of taking the discipline of like priming the body in the way it should mentally,
Hmm.
spiritually, priming yourself in the word, having self-development as always kind of a way to kind of prime and build that muscle in your head and heart. And then, the food intake, right? What quality, what kind of food, what kind of, supplement. I think that's so good because I think everybody, like my approach to it, and this is always a learning. I want to get your take on this too, Kelly, is I want to be optimal. How can I perform at my best so that I could be the sharpest tool in the shed that God can use that can
Mm.
help impact others? And if I'm looking at, like you're saying, like if I intoxicate myself, am I going to be more useful to
Hmm.
God or to others if I'm just dulling the senses with alcohol, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's just like altogether, there's the element of mind, body, and soul, like we were talking about, that is really, if you really examine where you're at, of taking stock, you audit, and then really kind of examine what do I need to add that's going to help benefit. I think many people don't think about that as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll never forget the moment where I knew that I was supposed to remove alcohol. I was at my friend's on the beach. It's my happy place. And I was just praying and just thinking about all my goals. And I was like, and I was not where I wanted to be. And I was
Yeah.
like, God, you're putting this big vision inside of me. And I don't even know the how. Like, I don't know the what. Like, tell me. And it was like a ton of bricks. And it's time for to stop drinking. And, I didn't drink a lot, but I drank enough to where, it was something to look at. And
Yeah.
so it was right after COVID where, everybody was popping the wine, probably more so.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was a very, very clear action for me. And I think of it when you were saying about, being your optimal self. So you think about our whole body, right? We need everything. So
Mm-hmm.
we need it all. We need our arms, we need our eyes, if we want to be at optimal, and if we lose our sight, we have to hone into another sense that's going to, rise up that sense. And so one doesn't work without the other. Our body doesn't work without our heart. Our body doesn't work without our lungs, at least not at that optimal level. So
Mm-hmm.
we really get to take a look at all intakes, the people we surround ourselves with, the news that's on, the TV shows, like you said, the music, the language, all of it. You can't pick and choose what you want. It's like having an emotion. You can't pick and choose which
Right.
emotions you want. You're going to get them all, right? So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on that.
And then your spiritual journey. I mean, it came probably from different places, but like sometimes it's like those things happen, like God nudges us in certain areas and then we're like, hey, I've been here all along. Like talk about that awareness of God in your life even more, and how that, that pivot to really surrender to him in all these areas. What did that look like?
Well, just like I was saying earlier with my faith, even, I grew up Lutheran, checked off
Okay.
the box, dressed nice, went to Sunday school, did all the things.
Mm.
But it was just something that you're supposed to do. And I found myself on my bathroom floor in my dorm my first year of college, after having a really bad bout with my laxatives, and just saying, it was really the first time I just kind of cried out, like, I need you, God.
Mm.
And I stopped cold turkey. It was by the grace of God, like I just
Wow.
stopped. And that was really the first time I was like, whoa, there's something to this. And, I kind of dabbled throughout my journey, until I had my second daughter, who she was born with a heart condition. And we had to go to cardiologist every week from the time she was born. And she'd have to be calm to get the readings. And one time she was just screaming, just nonstop. And we were doing everything and anything. And they said, if we don't get her to calm down, we're going to have to admit her to the hospital. And I'll never forget, she was lying on my stomach, screaming for hours. And I said, God, help us. And in a second, her body went limp. She stopped crying. She was calm. She was peaceful. And they got all the readings.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I have chills. It was the most powerful moment of my life, besides getting baptized. um, and so I knew that my Lord was always with me. I just have to ask.
Mm.
And I've been through a lot of dark times. I've shifted away. I've forgotten about him. And he, like you said, he's always with us.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, I started watching church online. A friend suggested a church online to me. It's Elevation Church. And the Lord just kept on saying, you need community, you need community.
Yeah.
And I put it in one of the moms groups. Hey, does anybody want to watch church with me? And a woman reached out and she says, hey, my brother just planted a church about a week ago.
Mm.
Come. And I said, you know what? Okay. Did a little stalking online first. And
Sure.
the pastor actually reached out to me and he stalked me online. It was great, him and his wife. And
Mm.
I went and I cried the whole time.
Mm.
And that was 3 years ago. And for 3 years, I have built this beautiful relationship with Jesus. It's
Mm.
not about religion. It's not about wrong and right. It's about just surrendering, because we don't have control over anything. The only thing we have control over is how we react, how we get to show up each and every day. That's
Yeah.
it. One of the best pieces of advice one of the pastor wife gave me, because my older one was really struggling, eating disorder. She became a mute. It was a really dark
Wow.
time.
Mm.
And I was in massive guilt because I went through that. And I'm like, how did I not see any of that coming?
Mm.
And she said, those children of yours are not your children. They're his. He has them. Surrender
Mm.
them to him. And that gave me such a peace in knowing that he loves them more than I could even imagine. Of course, I love them unconditionally. I birthed them, but at the end of the day, they're his.
Yeah.
He just blessed me with them to take care of them here. And so having that peace of saying, God, they're your girls. I know you have them. Protect them. All the prayers over them that I do. And then that's it. And then I just walk in peace. And I get to show up as a more peaceful, joyful, happier mom, as a vibrant, empowering woman of God to impact these kids. And I have peace,
Mm.
even in really dark times. People sometimes look at it like, oh, you're just, you're fake. Like, no, but what you see is what you get. I get my joy from the Lord. Like, I am just happy.
Yeah.
Am I struggling in some areas of my life? 100%. Um, and I'm peaceful because I
Yeah.
know He has me.
Yeah. And now you do speaking, and you're speaking in front of large audiences. What is that? How did you get into that?
Well, I actually started as an emotional intelligence coach. So I went through leadership and I was coaching these big leaders and supporting them and creating impact. And I'm like, I love this.
Mm.
And then I started speaking in women's groups and supporting women. And I'm like, I love this even more. But I kept on getting drawn back to the youth
Mm.
because they've been a part of my life, all my students. Like, what God just really wants me to hone in here. And so I go into schools, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, anywhere and get two kids, one kid, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Uh, and my recent one, I spoke to over 300 10th grade students, shared my story, super relatable, got real raw, danced, had fun, engaged with them, and just poured into them. We talk about breaking through limiting beliefs. We talk about unearthing your purpose. And we wrap it up with something I love. It's called the Life Latte.
Mm.
And it's a mixture of living a life of gratitude, self-love, and then all your beautiful experiences that you get to add these cinnamon moments in. And it's a beautiful time. And the impact that even if I touch one life, like I said it before, it's just this beautiful ripple effect I hope I never see the end to.
Yeah. I've enjoyed talking with you more and more, Kelly, about this. How could people follow you and connect with you though further?
Yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram. I'm Ignite Your Life for you.
Okay.
And yeah, they can follow me. I actually just started 138 Days to 50. So I'm sharing life lessons that I've learned. I'm sharing, some fun moments, some dance challenges. God had it on my heart. And so we
Love
just
it.
jumped right in.
Very, very cool. Well, I'll put those links down in the show notes. Everybody take a look at that. Make sure to connect with Kelly further for her story and all of the challenges and things that she does to help support and connect with people. And if you're an online leader wanting to take it to the next level, make sure to grab that training as well. That will be linked down below. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you.